I'm currently the vice president of sales for one of our divisions. I was the chief operating officer for our Brazil subsidiary. Man, Brazil is an amazing place. No, I'm not. And I'm not looking to get married. A few years later, I'm married. I got 2 beautiful kids. The thing you have to go focus on, and the thing that I continuously focus on, is doing the best job that I can do.
Hey guys, Happy New Year from the Inside Guys. This is Wole.
Hello, this is David.
Hope everyone has had a good 2024 so far. Welcome to the channel. And by the way, I want to remind you, this channel is all about sharing our experiences from a combined 50 years in technology that both Dave and I have. And we want to use this channel to share advice and our experience for others looking to do some of the same amazing things that we've both had a chance to do throughout our careers. And so please like and subscribe the video, comment, and engage. So with that, today we have a very, very special guest, longtime friend and colleague with a really interesting, with a lot of really interesting experience that we want to learn about, Rodney Williams. And Rodney, first of all, I want to make sure, should I call you Rodney or Mr. Vice President? Which one should I, how should I refer to you?
Just Rodney. I'm still the snothead dude that you met in Miami at MGX 24 years ago.
24 years ago. Wow, that is crazy. A lot of time has passed since then. So listen, I'm going to kick it over to Dave to kind of start the story and learn a little bit about your journey, your career, and how everything started for you.
Sure.
So Ryan, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and where you're from.
Yeah, so well, Rodney Williams. I'm born and raised in Chicago, South Side of Chicago. I left for a long time, and then I recently moved back to the Chicago area because my mom is getting older, and I want to come help, take care of her. But from Chicago, South Side, went to St. Ignatius High School, stayed in the area. Went to Lewis University where I played baseball. And studied computer science, and then stayed because I became a part of the staff, the faculty and staff. I ran one of the dormitories and also was an assistant coach for our baseball team, a grad assistant for our baseball team, and I got my MBA. And so I went straight through and got a undergrad BS in computer science, and then an MBA focusing on MIS. I've been in technology my entire life. Both my parents worked in technology. My mother worked for Citibank when they used to have a data center in the Chicago area and worked in a data center. My father worked at Spiegel, where he was an operator. So I was writing code when I was like 8 years old. I was running around a data center when I was 8 years old. When they were changing tapes and it was all old school COBOL and stuff like that. And so I kind of grew up in technology. And so really the themes for me were technology and sports. And so that's kind of what my background, that's how I take life. That's how I compete. And everything I do, it really is going to be around kind of the computer science background, math and computer science. And it's really about, competing and showing your best foot forward as you're trying to compete.
Yeah, nice, Ronnie. So you really didn't have a choice to get into technology. Starting back that.
No, I didn't. But it was cool. I took it to another level. But yeah, I have a twin sister. So both of us were in technology. Both our parents were in technology, and it was actually, to be honest with you guys, it was a blessing because there's not many chocolate people, brothers and sisters that look like us, that are in technology. I think back to when I was in school, there was 2. And like in my whole university, in our computer science program, there was 2 brothers. Me, who played baseball, and then another brother, my frat brother, who named Randy Clay, who played basketball for the school. And we were the only 2, African Americans in the computer science program. And so, that to me was fortunate. You had a lot of people in business, liberal arts, different studies. But for me, the whole time was about computer science, and the whole time was about, trying to do the best I could in math and all that other stuff.
Yeah,
That's
nice.
awesome.
We're going to get a little bit into your background, what led up to what you're doing today. But let's first start with kind of what are you doing now, who you're working with or for rather, and then a little bit about your current role.
Yeah, so I've been in Microsoft for approaching 24 years, and I've done a various different jobs, and I've moved 7 times over this 24-year career to kind of do things. And so
Physically moved,
like
yeah,
physically
right.
in different cities.
Yeah.
And so I made I made a name for myself in Microsoft because I was the cleanup guy. I was a fix-it guy. Like I was the guy who they would send to go fit, like let's say one of our services, our consulting business or our services business was struggling in a particular city or a particular area. They would send me there for like a 2-year stint to go work on it, clean it up, get it back to either profitability or top line results, driving for that business. And so that's kind of how I made my name for myself, going different places and just kind of doing some tough jobs and some tough assignments to kind of clean it up and get the business going right. So that's kind of how I made my name for myself. I enjoyed that type of work versus I'm not necessarily a farmer. I'm more of a hunter. And so that type of work was very exciting for me, although sometimes very difficult. But I think that's kind of how I made a name for myself at Microsoft. I'm currently the vice president of sales, and so I'm responsible for sales for one of our divisions. It's our industry solutions delivery, formerly MCS business. And so my responsibility—
That's our consulting organization.
Yes,
correct?
that's our consulting organization. And so I have responsibility to go ensure that we work with our field organization to go land the numbers and land the commitment, and more importantly, drive commercial cloud growth through the projects that we sell. And so I have a worldwide job responsible for that. And I've been doing that role for about 6.5 years now, since I moved from Brazil. So I spent about 6 years in Brazil as well, where I went there to clean up the services business, which I did in about 2.5 years. And then they asked me to stay on to be the number 2 in the country. And so I was the chief operating officer for our Brazil subsidiary, where I ran everything. Our entire enterprise business I had responsibility for. We also had a research arm there. And so I ran everything except for our consumer business, because I'm not a consumer guy. So I had responsibility for our enterprise segment, our partner segment, our M&O, and so really responsible for kind of the day-to-day operations and the day-to-day number for the Brazil subsidiary. And then before that, I did various roles, really trying to clean up our different consulting businesses that were struggling. And so I spent time— here's where I spent time. So started in Chicago, spent time in Minneapolis, Minnesota, Cleveland, Ohio, Boston, Massachusetts, then out to the West Coast, where I ran the West region for our consulting business. And then I won the Chairman's Award. So I got the Bill Gates Rolex.
So we have to slow down a little bit because some of our people that watch the channel aren't familiar with some of the terms.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, so I know Wole had kind of want to walk you through a little bit so that we can catch people up, because you have a vast amount of experience. So,
this is a good point. So what I'm thinking about, someone who is maybe aspiring to get to the same point you are. So you've done an incredible number of roles, and you kind of walked us through some of it. My question is, when you first came to Microsoft, where did you start? Like, what were the first couple of roles that you did? which led you to being entrusted with these future responsibilities?
Yeah, that's a good story.
Yeah, so talk about that.
Yeah, so I think the thing I'm going to talk about, the most important thing are sponsors and the acquisition of sponsors. And sponsors are different than mentors. Sponsors are people who know your capabilities and they're willing to vouch for you for opportunities as opportunities arise. And so when I came to Microsoft, prior to Microsoft, I was very technical. I used to design and build and maintain trading floors and trading systems. So I was a financial services expert, and I came to Microsoft when NT4 and the kernel became solid.
Windows NT4.
Windows NT4, right?
One of the first enterprise operating systems that Microsoft created.
Yeah, so I came there when Windows NT4 and Microsoft SQL Server became solid, because it was in training environment, and I was like, okay, Microsoft is ready. And at the time, Microsoft was going to an industry model, and where the company formed the financial services industry. And so I came to the company because that was my background, to go do consulting work. So I was a strategy consultant. So some of my first assignments were working, like I did work with US Bank. I did work for National City Bank because that was kind of my expertise. And I worked with them through some transitions. At the time, US Bank and First Star merged. I was working with them, kind of how we merged the technologies of the banks, the Microsoft technologies of the bank, to ensure that it would be a smooth transition. So I did that type of work. And then at National City Bank, they were putting in a new teller platform. Well, I'd done a lot of work around bank teller platform stuff. So I worked with them on that type of work as well. And so I was a tech guy. I was never, my whole thought about sales, being a salesperson, was not necessarily, at the time, I didn't think it was in my DNA. And so I wanted to work on technology, and I wanted to go to tackle tough problems with customers and things like that. However, what ended up happening is I started doing that work. I started doing pretty good at that work. And then a sponsor, a guy by the name, and I was really good in delivery. I was really good in the technical aspects of working with customers. And then we did a reorg. And I had acquired a sponsor by the name of Steve Provost. At the time, was the VP of the East region. And when we were doing that, we were, chairs were moving. And one of the things that Steve did was he surprised me. He said, "You know what, Rodney? Yeah, you're good at this delivery stuff, but no, I want you to go do sales. And I want you to go do sales management." And I was very angry with that decision, but I did it, and I,
But he saw something in you,
yes,
that maybe you didn't even see it in yourself at the time,
exactly,
which led him to ask you to take on this completely different responsibility.
Yeah, exactly. And I was angry about it. I was I'm a delivery dude, man. I'm a tech dude. I'm not no sales leader. I'm not no sales manager. No, that's not my thing. And he's like, "No, you're just gonna go do it." And Steve was a tough dude, man, from New Hampshire. And then I started taking the role as a sales manager in terms, and thinking about it in terms of the process, in terms of the architecture of the system of how you go about leading salespeople, how you do forecasting, how you predict the things that we're going to go deliver, how you're going to predict the things that we're going to sell, how you provide coaching for people to bring them up to go focus on the things.
Sounds like you use some of your technical, the way that you approach technology implementation. You carried that over into how you thought about sales and leadership.
Yeah, right? Exactly. And then what that also caused me to do was to become a student of leadership, like understanding different leadership styles, understanding people. I went at it really hardcore, thinking at it from a athletes and sports mentality of winning. but then translating that to understand the talents of each of your people, and then making sure you're feeding them the things that they need to be successful. And then the most important thing is taking a step back and not necessarily being the great one, but coaching the great ones, working with the great ones. And so that helped me kind of adjust some of my style. That helped me, address some of the things that I needed to address. And so when they did that, then they said, oh, okay, you're pretty good at this. All right, we want you to go now run a region. So we want you to run the 14 West region states, because at the time the business was struggling. They weren't making the numbers. And so they shipped me out there with about 2 weeks notice. They shipped me out to the West Coast. And then I had to take on a team that was kind of missing their numbers big.
This is a consulting group.
Let me ask,
right? This is still within consulting. Yeah, gotcha.
Still within consulting.
Let me ask you a question about that, because you talked about this sponsor, this person sponsoring you. Did you have a previous, and I'm sure people are going to be wondering about, like, how did that come about? Did you have a previous relationship with this person who sponsored you, which led him to, like, how did he didn't come out of the blue?
Yeah, so I had a number.
If someone wants to think about, how do I acquire a sponsor? Did it just happen, or is there something active or proactive you did?
Well, so the acquisition of sponsors is very difficult, because you pick your mentors, but your sponsors pick you. And so the thing you have to go focus on, and the thing that I continuously focus on, is doing the best job that I can do. Yeah. And doing the job that was kind of set out for me, making sure communicate clearly with people, but making sure that those cross-group relationships in how you make the company and the goals successful is how you leverage and you work well with others. Okay. And then what happens is your sponsors will see you doing your job. And if you're doing your job in that fashion, they acquire you. Because here's what happens when a sponsor, and I've had many, like, I can name, people who were very influential in my career, very influential in my life, to be honest with you, in how I work with them. And I had no idea they were sponsors of mine. No clue. Like when you found out, like, for example, when I was promoted to a partner, one of the things that happened at the time, a couple people that I saw as sponsors for myself was Kevin Turner, who's the former COO of Microsoft, right? And then our chief auditor came to Brazil to work with us because we were about to be audited. And everybody, every of my peers were avoiding this guy who came down. I didn't. I just met with him. I took him to meet with customers. He saw me in action with the customers. And when the company was considering to promote me to a partner, I had no idea that Kevin Turner reached out to him to ask him about me. No idea. And what he said, Melvin Flowers was his name. And I found this out later when he told me, after I'd gotten promoted, I was doing the job. He basically told me that KT said, listen, we're thinking about giving Rodney a promotion. What do you think? And at that moment, he could have said, this, that, and the other. He didn't. He said, you know what? I saw him. We met with customers and partners. I think he's done a pretty good job. And then that was one of the catalysts to help me get to, because, in Microsoft, getting that promotion to certain levels becomes very difficult because you start getting in that rarefied air. And at that moment, I had acquired a sponsor that I had no idea. And so the acquisition of sponsors is their choice, but how you do your job every day, how you come to work today, how you interact with others, and how you drive for the results that the company needs you to drive for are the most important aspects of that. And then someone chooses, I like this person, or I like what this person is doing. This person has shown me something. And a lot of times you don't know that. So the acquisition of sponsors, our responsibility in that is to do the best job we can be the best communicators that we can be, engage with people to help them, and more importantly, help others be better rather than just yourself.
I love it.
Does that make sense?
100%, 100%. I want to ask you one more question before I turn it back over to Dave. You've kind of glossed over this a couple of times. You talked about the time you spent in Brazil. You talked about executives visiting you in Brazil. I want to understand how that came about.
That's not a small thing.
Yeah, exactly. So how did you're American, you started with the company in the United States. As far as I know, you don't speak, at least at that time, you didn't speak Portuguese.
I didn't speak any Portuguese, man.
So how did that opportunity, just give me a brief synopsis of how that opportunity presented itself.
Brief synopsis. 3 times before I was asked, like I said, back to sponsors and leaders. Several times before I was asked to go take on some challenging situations, and I did it without hesitation. I moved without hesitation. And then I went in there, rolled up my sleeves, and got the job done to the best of my ability. Yes, there were failures. Yes, there were mistakes, but to the best of my ability. And so 3 times before. And so the last time before going to Brazil, I had done something that was amazing. I took the West region, and in 2 years, we took a business that was missing its numbers by tens of millions of dollars. The consulting business, not the product business, the consulting business, and helped turn that around. And we doubled that in 2 years. And based on that work, I won a prestigious award that at Microsoft was a very big deal. It was called the Chairman's Award. It was Bill Gates' award that he awarded people. And so I won it. I was the first consulting person to go win the Chairman's Award. And that catapulted me to a view of like the broader company looking at, okay, who is this guy? What did this guy do? And so after I won the Chairman's Award at Microsoft, you get a sabbatical. And so at a certain level, certain time in the company, you get a sabbatical. So I took my sabbatical and I went away. I'd done the thing. Before I came back, a sponsor and boss of mine, a retired 3-star general, guy by the name of Mike McDuffie, called me before I came back and said, "Hey, we got a problem in Brazil. Are you mobile?" He was the guy that called me to go to the West region. And I said, "Mike, you and I have had this conversation before." "Of course." He's like, "Okay, got it." So after that, they basically asked me to go interview. I interviewed with the leadership, and I talked to them about, what I can do in Latin America and Brazil to go turn around the services business. And they said, "Okay, let's go do it." And so so I packed up.
Yep.
Didn't
just like that.
Packed up, like literally. They rushed me to get a visa.
I assume you were single at the time. You had no.
Oh yeah, I was single. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Like at the time, I was just about work and play. Right. I wanted to work hard. I wanted to play hard. But so I was like, yeah, done. Let's go do it. And
let me ask you, Brian, real quick. So from the time that they asked you about it to the time you actually went, how much time was involved?
3 weeks.
Wow.
Whoa. 3 weeks. That is mobile. That is very mobile.
3 weeks. And then and so
have you been there before? You went there sight unseen?
I had gone there a long time ago, long before, for a couple days, because it's Brazil, and Brazil has a reputation. So I'd gone there, but I didn't speak the language, didn't know the culture, none of that. But the funny thing is, the leaders, some of those sponsors, were taking bets because they knew I had no desire whatsoever to get married, like have kids.
Right.
None of that, man. I was like,
I think we knew each other in those days.
We knew these others in the day. You and I used to run together. so like I had no desire whatsoever. And they're like, oh, Rodney. And it was so funny. The guy who ran Latin America, gentleman, he's retired from Microsoft now. Hernan Rincon. Hernan, basically, his whole interview, when I went to interview with him, everyone interviewed with me about what I would do, what would be the job. My interview with him completely shocked me. It was a whole conversation. Rodney, are you married? No, I'm not. And I'm not looking to get married. Oh, Rodney, the culture is just so amazing down there. And when I talked to him later, because I was part of his org, he told me he had that interview with me because he wanted to see how I would address surprises culturally. Because what he told me about is in the US, we're very structured, we're very focused on the job. But when you get outside of the US, it's about this, how you touch a person's heart to get them to perform is more important than the pure execution. And so he told me he was interviewing me, and the questions that he was asking me were more geared to be how I would react to
He wanted to see if you would be a cultural fit. Is that right?
Yeah. Could I get the hearts and the minds of the people? Because people don't start work. I mean, like meetings in Brazil, meetings didn't start on time. Then when people came, everyone stopped and they greeted each other. Everyone hugged and kissed. And like, in America, you're afraid to even do that. And so I appreciated his interview after I got there. And when I spoke to him about it, I was like, why did you ask me? He's like, Rodney, I wanted to understand how you would adapt to different people, because the American way isn't always the way in different cultures. And so that was a lesson that I learned, and something you apply to is that you always have to go deliver the results, but the how you get to those results, the how you motivate people to follow you, and how you motivate them to get the job done is something that you have to really look at and be a part of. And so being structured and rigid, there's some jobs that I won't be a fit for, and I know this now.
Yeah.
But there are other jobs that I might be a fit for based on the cultural aspects, the leadership principles that I bring to the job, my willingness to roll up my sleeves. But not every environment is that. And so those are some things that I look at and I think about. And so for your audience, the thing I want them to get from this conversation is be the best leader, the best person that you can be, but you also need to go in with your eyes wide open, not with blinders. Open it up to a broader view.